Imprisoned US Army whistleblower Chelsea Manning is recovering in hospital after attempting suicide in jail. She was due to appear in court on Friday. Manning has been in prison since May for refusing to testify against WikiLeaks before a grand jury. Saskia Taylor got more on the developments earlier from correspondent Murad Gaziev.
Well, it was allegedly a very, very close-run thing because the guards, when they found her, she was hanging by a sheet in her cell, unresponsive, unconscious, and blue, already blue. They got there in time. Fortunately, they took her down, administered first aid. She was still breathing. They rushed her to a hospital, and everything's now fine. There's no danger to her health. She's responsive. She's talking to her lawyers, and unfortunately for her, due to appear in court tomorrow, a day after, a near-death experience.
Ms. Manning is still scheduled to appear on Friday for a previously calendared hearing. She remains unwavering in her refusal to participate in a secret grand jury process that she sees as highly susceptible to abuse. Her actions today evidence the strength of her convictions, as well as the profound harm she continues to suffer as a result of her civil confinement.
So, Murad, just talk us through what's happened, what's led to this moment.
Her sentence initially, which was many years, over a decade, was commuted by Barack Obama. She served 7 years. So Chelsea Manning was jailed back in 2010 for providing WikiLeaks, for leaking to WikiLeaks, thousands, hundreds of thousands of classified documents from the Pentagon.
Come on, let us shoot. Come on. Oh yeah, look at that, right through the windshield.
Give us a bit of backstory to this. I mean, what has landed Manning behind bars again?
Well, the last year has been a seesaw for Chelsea Manning, a very unpleasant one. So last year she was ordered to testify before a grand jury. A grand jury is a panel of citizens who have been called by the state to investigate whether a crime has been committed and what to do about it, whether to prosecute or whether to let it go. And the court ordered Chelsea Manning to testify before this panel about her ties to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, about the documents that she had handed over in 2010, something that she says she has already done. So she said to the judge, no, I won't do it. This is, this is the government abusing the law in order to go after whistleblowers, to go after journalists, to muzzle them, to shut them up, which is something that Chelsea Manning doesn't want to do. She further says that this is, she has already testified. She has said what she had to say earlier on.
Attempting to coerce me with a grand jury subpoena is just not going to work. I will not cooperate with this or any other grand jury. The questions are the same questions that I was asked before the court-martial in my, in 7-8 years ago. There's nothing new. They're not asking anything new. There's no new information that they're trying to get from me. In fact, the questions are very much the same things that I've gone over.
The judge didn't like that at all, so he ordered her to be indefinitely detained, incarcerated behind bars until she talked. She was let go for a few months, then ordered back to prison until she talked. Furthermore, there's a fine as well, a progressively larger fine. Every day at this point, she's being fined $1,000 for standing by her principles, essentially.
And you talked there about how it's been a kind of tough few years for her. I think that's probably an understatement. I mean, we know she spent such a long time in jail, 7 years before, then back again in March 2019. I mean, have human rights reacted to this? And what has been the reaction?
Oh, there's been all sorts of reaction from a wide variety of organizations, from rights groups, from journalist unions, and many organizations have come out and said what has happened happening is simply unacceptable. The UN says that what the United States is doing, keeping her in prison until she says what they want to hear, is essentially torture.
The continued detention of Manning is not a lawful sanction, but an open-ended, progressively severe coercive measure amounting to torture and should be discontinued and abolished without delay. The practice of coercive deprivation of liberty for civil contempt involves the intentional infliction of progressively severe mental and emotional suffering for the purposes of coercion and intimidation of the order of judicial authorities.
Obviously, she tried to kill herself. So the pressure must be getting to her, no matter how strong someone is, how set by their principles they are, incarceration and these huge fines and the pressure, it all builds up.
Journalist Daniel Lazar says there are dangers in pursuing WikiLeaks and whistleblowers.
Chelsea Manning's attempted suicide shows the highly punitive nature of this entire U.S. investigation into WikiLeaks. They are essentially, they've accused Julian Assange of attempting to hack top secret U.S. computers, which is a very strange thing because he really only functioned as a journalist, not as a hacker. If they succeed in extraditing Julian Assange and putting him on trial in the U.S. and then convicting him, then essentially any journalist who receives any information at all from any kind of government source will be in grave danger of being accused of encouraging and thereby abetting the leaking of secret information. So essentially, it's a direct threat to journalism as we know it. And if Assange is convicted, then really half of journalism will be shut down. So I think it's very serious. It's very dangerous.
How's everybody doing?
And I think that any journalist worth his salt should be up in arms over what the government is doing.